few years back, I decided to buy a truck off of Craigslist. Now, before you judge, let me explain. It was an incredible deal, and at that time, my financial situation wasn't exactly stellar. Truth be told, I had never ventured into the realm of Craigslist before. However, I knew it was a go-to platform for people looking to sell things, and often you could find some pretty sweet deals there. So, despite the low prices of vehicles listed on the site, I still found myself short on cash. In fact, I had to turn to my dad for some financial assistance because I simply didn't have the few $1,000s in my account necessary to snag even a budget-friendly car. After browsing through the listings for a while, I came across a guy who was selling his truck for $4,000. I decided to message him, and to my surprise, he responded quite promptly. He patiently answered all of my questions about the truck, and his responses sounded genuine and honest. Despite admitting that the truck wasn't the prettiest sight, he assured me that it was reliable and would get me where I needed to go. Intrigued by his offer, I proposed to meet him halfway at a Burger King, considering it was a convenient location for both of us. Arriving first at our meeting spot, I took an Uber and found myself waiting. About 5 minutes later, he appeared. We engaged in small talk, during which he shared more details about the truck. He mentioned it had a few minor issues in the past, but assured me nothing was seriously wrong. Given my tight budget, I wasn't in a position to be overly choosy. Naturally, I inquired about taking it for a test drive. He suggested a less crowded parking lot nearby where we could go for the test drive. Initially, I thought to order another Uber for myself, but he mentioned it was just across the street. He proposed we ride over together. I figured, why not, and agreed to go with him. Not wanting to come across as impolite and being new to this kind of situation, I somewhat naively assumed it was all standard procedure. In hindsight, I realize I could have been more assertive, perhaps even dismissive, but there was a part of me that felt reassured because he was older. Somehow, his age made him seem more trustworthy to me at the moment. Once I got into the vehicle, he inquired if I had my license with me. This question, seemingly responsible, only added to my impression of him as a genuinely decent person. As we set off, the drive seemed to deviate from the original plan. Instead of heading just across the street to the suggested parking lot, we ended up going a bit further, a few blocks away from the Burger King. Eventually, we arrived at an empty parking lot secluded from the main road. This unexpected change in location raised my suspicions, although, in hindsight, it should have been one of the first warning signs. "Okay, let's switch," he declared, bringing the car to a halt. As we maneuvered around the vehicle, he tossed the keys in my direction, warning me with a casual "heads up." However, his aim was off, and the keys landed far from my reach. I awkwardly leaned down to retrieve them, but before I could react, I felt the force of his foot crashing into my side. Suddenly, he was on top of me, forcibly grabbing my wallet from my back pocket before sprinting back towards the truck. Reacting quickly, I snatched the keys from the ground, assuming he had simply forgotten them in the chaos of the moment. Perhaps I could use them to negotiate, or even force a trade. However, my hopes were dashed when I realized the keys he had thrown at me were likely fake. With a sinking feeling, I watched as he sped off, leaving me stranded and feeling utterly foolish. To add insult to injury, everything unfolded so swiftly that I didn't even manage to catch a glimpse of the license plate. Despite this setback, I still had my phone with me. Without hesitation, I immediately took action, canceling the only card I possessed. The last thing I needed was for him to drain what little funds I had. Following this, I dialed the police without delay. I returned to Burger King and met with the authorities to file a report. Unfortunately, the details I could provide were sparse. Just a rusty white truck and a generic description of the perpetrator, an average middle-aged white man. Despite our efforts, the investigation didn't yield any results. The scammer had already taken down the ad, and his email, as it turned out, wasn't even under a real name. It was apparently just a reference to a video game character. Moreover, I still hadn't managed to get hold of his license plate. In summary, I ended up losing $4,000 in cold, hard cash. I had to endure the hassle of waiting for a new card to arrive in the mail, as well as going through the process of obtaining a new license. To make matters worse, the perpetrator remained at large, evading capture by the authorities. The lesson learned from this unfortunate ordeal: avoid using Craigslist altogether, and don't fall victim to the same level of naivety and foolishness that I did.